Hello and welcome to Quality Professional Consulting Group YouTube channel. My name is Ben Tomic, and in this short video we're gonna talk about calibration management. So let's start. All monitoring and measuring equipment that are used to ensure conformity of product and services to specified requirements must be calibrated according to ISO 9001:2015 standard. Calibration can be performed internally if it is feasible by using known standard, or externally by using accredited source for calibration. The external providers of calibration services must be accredited to ISO IEC 17025 standard, which is general requirements for the competence of testing and calibration laboratories. ISO IEC 17025 is the main ISO standard used by testing and calibration laboratories. In most countries, this standard, ISO IEC 17025, is the standard for which most calibration providers must hold accreditation in order to be deemed technically competent. If an organization has resources to calibrate its equipment internally, it should do so, because the most common reason is, first of all, to be in charge of its own process and to save the costs. The reference standard of known accuracy calibrated externally should be used for this purpose as a main standard for internal calibration. Okay, monitoring and measuring equipment identification. Each monitoring and measuring equipment should be uniquely identified. For example, if we have a micrometer that measures from 0 to 1 inch from micrometer set number 1, we should identify it with the example here provided, which is MIC 01-01-00/01, where MIC indicates type of device, which is micrometer in this case. 01 is a set number from the set number 1, and 01 indicates the range of measurement measuring instrument, which is from 0 to 1 inch. This is just an example. Calibration interval. The organization itself must define the calibration interval of monitoring and measuring equipment. There is no such a standard that strictly defines the calibration interval. The calibration interval must be defined by the organization, and the calibration interval depends solely on organization, and the main factor for deciding what interval to assign is how often and where the equipment is used. For example, if we frequently use equipment and it's used in the harsh manufacturing process, exposed to different conditions, we may decide to tighten the calibration interval. However, most calibration intervals are based on annual verification, which is 1 year calibration frequency. Calibration environment. If the organization internally calibrates its monitoring and measuring equipment, it must ensure that environmental conditions do not affect calibration process. Mostly, the organization needs to control the temperature and relative humidity in the area where a calibration process is performed. For dimensional instruments like micrometers, verniers, high gauges, and so on, temperature should be 20 degrees Celsius plus minus 1 degree Celsius, and relative humidity between 30 and 55%. Calibration controls. To ensure proper calibration controls, the organization must have master standard for calibration, calibration labels for each monitoring and measuring instrument, a master log of all monitoring and measuring instruments, and individual records for each monitoring and measuring instruments. Master standard for calibration could be the master gauge set, which is presented here in the slide. So these blocks, the calibration blocks that are externally calibrated or rather verified, can be used for the internal calibration because they are with a known accuracy. So this is the just example, right, for the master set that can be used for the internal calibration. Calibration label should identify the equipment that needs to be calibrated with ID, the identification number, which we discussed previously. A date of calibration should be on the label, and the due date for the next calibration depends on the frequency or the calibration interval that was previously determined by the organization. Also should bear the name or some identification of the person who performed the calibration. Calibration log is the main document that would specify the equipment information, such like a name, description, and ID, the identification, then location of the equipment, for example, department or area or the specific location, and the calibration information like last calibration, calibration interval, and the next due date of calibration. Also, the calibration record is the individual record for each instrument that can be internally calibrated, and the example of that calibration record is shown on this slide. We could enter the equipment type like micrometer that we already mentioned previously, size range 0 to 1 inch, for example, ID like we are provided example previously as well, MIC-01-00/01, frequency annually or once per year, and so on and so on. Then we could move to calibration information like a calibration date, due date, 3 set points, calibration standard used for calibration, which is our master gauge set, the temperature and relative humidity as environmental conditions should also be recorded to provide validity of the environment, and some records of the person who actually executed the calibration process, and some other information. So that would be pretty much everything for this short video. If you want to stay informed about this particular matter, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel. More videos related to this process are about to come. Thank you for watching this one.